Good afternoon, everyone, and happy New Year. Um, it's just a strange feeling. Feels like I haven't seen you all in a while, and at the same time, feels like yesterday I just saw you. Um, but I hope everyone's enjoyed beginning of the new year. Got a little time away, and for us, it's a little strange because the new academic calendar has been pushed back because normally we are full bore mode right now, winter conditioning, getting ready for an early spring football. The spring football pushed back, and our guys not even on campus right now. We've had a lot of time to really, of course, dive into recruiting, but to do some scheme evaluation and really look at a lot of our things in all three phases, and we're in that process right now. So slowed down for us a little bit, which is great. Um, so I'll say a few things first, just in the shortest recap, and I can go back and answer questions about the past year. But just looking back at this last year and talking to our seniors, our outgoing guys, um, I told them, you're going to look back at your senior year, and some of them right now are still thinking, man, it would have been great to have a senior day and didn't have all those senior festivities. Um, but I think they have one of the more remarkable experiences in the history of Stanford football in particular. And to perform at such a high level with all that was going on, it's a memory that I think they'll cherish forever. At the very early on, there's one thing I kept saying to the guys is, in times of difficulty, you want to perform as a person, as a player, as a student, in such a way when you look back and you say, "Wow, I'm glad I handled things that way." And I think this group can say that and be really proud of what they did individually and what we did collectively. Um, Handled a lot of those things. The last 3 weeks, obviously, every reason in the world to pack it in, every reason in the world not to give it your all. Um, and our guys handled it. But even at the beginning of the year, going up first game of the year and losing our starting quarterback, yes, it would have been interesting to see if we had Davis really not just the first game, but the second week leading into the second game. But even without that, to go out there and fight and scrap and perform at the best level we could at the time. So much to be proud of, and so much to look back on and be grateful for the opportunity. Grateful to our administration, our doctors, trainers, operational staff, and just allowing these guys to have the opportunity to play the sport that they love. Um, as I mentioned, spring football pushed back to May. Gives us a different time frame, so our student athletes are not on campus right now. As of right now, they're scheduled to come back towards the end of February, which now we've sent them their training regimens, and so the guys are training away from us, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to have a somewhat of a normal spring football. We'll see how the numbers nationally and our numbers in our county um, have will they give us that opportunity to have a regular one, if it has to be augmented. But right now we're excited for that. We're excited for our first two student athletes that are early enrollees. Um, I'm grateful to our administration once again. We've been talking about this for years, and can we do it? Should we do it? Um, I think bringing in Ari Patu and Jaden Slocum as our first two to kind of test the waters and make sure, okay, how do we have housing? How do we deal with their meals? How do we deal with their curriculum? First and foremost, to make sure that they are transitioning from high school to college, and then preparation for the summer academically, and then into the fall. So I'm excited about that process. It's been going on around the country for a long time, and it has affected our recruiting for years. And now to be able to have that as a potential, it's not set in stone exactly how we're going to do it going forward. But now that possibility being there is very, very exciting. Speaking of exciting, our kickoff classic, we've had opportunities in the past to participate in one of these, and they were all really difficult to take on top of our typical conference schedule and Notre Dame, and then add another game outside of that was hard for us to do. This game was scheduled, and we're excited. I was excited to go to Manhattan, Kansas, a place that I've been hearing about for years. I know many guys that played there and coached there. Was excited about renewing getting the second half of this home and home. But now it just seems so natural, and both programs are excited about moving this game to the big Cowboy Stadium. I don't know if any of you have been there. It's just it's one of the athletic wonders of the world. So I know our guys are excited, and we've got 10 Texans on the team right now, and hopefully we'll see how many more as recruiting wraps up. But it's an exciting thing for our guys now to be able to play in front of their families and on a national stage to begin the season. That's really exciting for our guys. Gotten to know Chris Kleiman a little bit over the years, different functions or AFCA conventions, as well as different committees, and we've crossed paths on, and did such a great job in North Dakota State, and has really built on top of what was built there before, to really have a physical football team that plays the game at a high level. And I know he's still building that program, and I'm excited and looking forward to that opportunity to play early in the season on such a great stage. So love to open up for questions and hear what you all have to say this late January with no football in sight. So I'm curious to hear these questions, see what you all have.
First question will go to Jacob Rayburn. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Coach. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
You talked about the early enrollees, and was wondering if you could elaborate at all about how much of this is an experiment to see what would work in future years, or is there a likelihood at all that this is a one-off because of how unique the circumstances are of this year?
I kind of stay away from saying either one of those. I don't want to use the word experiment, and I don't want to think of it as a one-off. I think more in terms of process. Can we develop a process that works for the student athletes first and foremost, to come in early and start their education, as well as participate in athletics, and then can this process be repeated? So we're going to be systematic. We were systematic in getting here. And it's, once again, this was not a football program. Many of you know this. This was not a football program decision. This has to come from the top. And our president and provost looked at what's been going on around the nation. And we're not followers here at Stanford. If we want to do something, it's going to be done the Stanford way and not anybody else's way. Rick Shaw and our admissions department really looking at this and saying, okay, we got to make sure that these young people are finishing their high school education and not shortchanging themselves. And then once they get here, what can we give them as an opportunity? So, our student life people, all kinds of people really are taking a look at this. And hopefully we can get to the point where this is productive for everybody involved and something that we can repeat in the future. But I'm excited. We're at the beginning of this, and hopefully it's something that stays with us.
And one follow-up on that, I think that Stanford and maybe the service academies have been the only ones not to allow early enrollees up to this point. There may be others, but I think that's the group. What are those Stanford specific hurdles that you know will have to be satisfied for the university to want to keep doing this?
Well, for me, I think it's really simple. Can we identify, because it's not one of those things where this is not going to be for everybody. It's not going to be the entire class. There are going to be and will continue to be some people that some high schools don't allow it. And there will be some people that our admissions looks at and says, you know what, we think they need to finish the second semester of that AP course. Let's let them finish their high school education. So I don't ever envision this being the entire class coming in early. And we're not going to be able to pick and choose. The football program didn't pick and choose the two young men that are coming in. There's a combination of our administration and our admissions department, identifying those people that they believe are ready to start their process. And then all of us on campus here, making sure that they have an opportunity to start their college lives and college education on the right foot. So I think there are going to be a lot of hands in this. There are also going to be a lot of people watching and saying, is this a wise thing? Is this a smart thing? For years, we pushed back against this. The thing to me that's changed the most is that students across the country, student athletes, football student athletes in particular, they're setting their academic schedules and calendars to graduate early, starting their freshman year. So it's not like these young people aren't graduating. They're getting all of their education done. They're checking off all the boxes for their high school degrees. They're just doing them early. So this is not shortchanging anyone's academic experience. I think once we understood that as an entity, as a Stanford entity, that these young people are getting their education, now let's see, is there something that we can do to prepare them for the summer, which prepares them for the fall, and make sure that process is set in place. So so we're not there to make any grand statements just yet, but feeling comfortable about the two young men coming in and building a process that makes sense for them and for Stanford.
Thanks so much, Coach.
Next up, we'll go to RJ Abadia.
Hey, Coach. So kind of jumping ahead to on the timeline, the NFL released their draft process protocols and their combine adjustments for this year. And it seems like there's kind of a bigger onus on the campus pro days than maybe in a normal year. Can you walk us through how impacted this draft class is going to be by the new rules, and then maybe use Davis or some of your guys as a test case to kind of illustrate what's going to be different for them?
Well, it's the good and bad, right? The bad being our guys have performed well at the combine as a whole over the years. We get them to understand they train extremely well. A guy like Casey Duhill went out there and really opened a lot of eyes and ended up being with the Washington football team this year and active for games. So I think that's a shame for us because our guys have typically done well there. As you can imagine, we knock it out of the park, especially on the interview process, and our guys understanding what to do and how to express themselves and showing that maturity, that Stanford maturity that this place helps them with. But then the good also is, we've got a great facility and we've had really good pro days, and the NFL scouts trust our process here. They know that our field is regulation. They know that our timing is real. They know that our guys will show up and perform. So if we get to the point where NFL scouts can come by the time that we'll see. If they can't, then I believe they'll also trust what they see on the film that we send them. And I feel good about our guys being able to come out and perform. Now I'll say this too. I'm excited. Like this group of guys going to the NFL, and we'll see how many are drafted high, et cetera. I anticipate a high number of these guys are going to make football teams, and a lot of maturity, a lot of fourth and fifth year guys that so often around the country see guys that are coming out after 3 years and half of them don't get drafted. We've got a lot of mature guys that have played a lot of football that are looking forward to this opportunity. So I think this is going to be exciting. It's a shame they can't go to Indianapolis and have that experience, but at the same time, they're going to get a chance to perform in a place that they're comfortable and hopefully put up some good numbers, and we'll have some good film to send out to NFL teams.
And then just kind of following up about Davis specifically as a quarterback, how does he navigate this landscape versus what he might do in a normal year?
Well, once again, the good and bad is he's in Georgia. The rules in Georgia are different than the rules in California, to say it nicely. So he's got an opportunity to train and throw and do some things out there to truly get ready for that combine experience, although it'll be at our pro day. He'll also have guys to throw to, right? He'll have receivers and tight ends, et cetera, to throw to. Davis is one of those that's really interesting too, because I think he's ready. I think he's going to make a football team. I think he's going to be a mid-round draft pick. We'll see how high he goes. And I think he's got a chance to be an NFL starter. And the flip side is, gosh, what if he did come back and put together one of those years that we think he's capable of? Is he's really, as I like to usually say, he really hasn't begun his sophomore year, even though he's a senior. And to me, you have to play 12 games before you're considered not a freshman anymore. And he's played 11 real ones anyway. So I do think that the ceiling's extremely high. I think regardless of where he goes, I think he's going to have a chance to not only make the team, but have a chance at some point in time in the next couple of years to play. And I think he'll play well. But I think also his mentality too is that he's graduate. He's going to be a Stanford graduate. He's a 4-year guy. He's smart. He's mature. And when you really look at his film and you look at the plays that he made, he's an NFL quarterback that's got a chance to start some games.
Thank you, Coach.
Next question, let's go to Harold Gutman. Harold, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. Thanks for talking with us today. I had a question about you. Personally, I know it's probably the least favorite subject you'd like to talk about yourself, but I know Sean Payton mentioned you as someone he wanted to see coaching in the NFL. I'm just wondering how, your name comes up a lot. How tempting is that? I mean, I imagine on the one hand, it's gratifying to hear something like that. On the other hand, probably doesn't make you too happy. Just what are your reactions when you hear stuff like that?
So my wife said, "Hey, have you talked to Sean Payton?" I said, "No, it's been a while. I think we touched base last year." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, have you changed your representation? Like, do you have a new agent?" I said, "No." I said, "We would have talked about that." She said, "Oh," she said, "I was wondering if Sean became your agent." And she showed me what he said, and I started laughing. Sean Payton is very, very bright. Sean has also put himself in a position because of his success that he can be a little more outspoken than maybe some other people. And he has been outspoken over the last couple of years. Last year, I remember him saying, basically all you have to be is young and white and have some success as a coordinator, you're going to be a head coach. Like that was, I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, Sean, like that's like, I would never say that out loud. I can't believe you said that out loud. But he's also one of those people who say, hey, you know what? Guys like me have to make noise. Guys like Sean Payton have to make noise. And I appreciate that respect. We've worked together in the past and have a lot of respect for each other. I've told the team repeatedly that when my name comes up in those NFL circles, it's just because of how well our guys play and how they represent the football program at Stanford University. But there are a lot of guys out there that look like me that can do a good job. And it's up to all of us to continue to identify them and prepare them and support them and put them in position to get those jobs.
Next, we'll go back to Jacob Rayburn. Go ahead, Jacob.
Coach, you mentioned earlier about the staff evaluating scheme. Wondering what you can share about kind of the early returns of that evaluation and maybe what comes to mind thinking about the areas that you would like to target for improvement and things that maybe you were most satisfied with that worked kind of the way you wanted it to before the season started.
A little early to give you too much there, and not that I would ever completely give you what you would be looking for in asking that question. But in comparison to a year ago, starting with the offensive side, we obviously ran the ball much better than we did the year before, able to be a little bit more balanced and better in short yards, goal line, and red zone situations, which is what we put a lot of time and effort into in the offseason last year. And I think that did show up in particular, which I've always said, even when I was the offensive coordinator, in order to be good in the red zone, which is we have a history of being really good in the red zone here. And it's not just because we had Andrew Luck and NFL tight ends. I think our system is very solid down there. You have to be able to run the ball. If you don't run it well inside the 20s, you're going to kick a lot of field goals and not score a lot of touchdowns. And I think early on we struggled with that. Granted, we missed our starting quarterback the first game of the year and didn't perform necessarily well the second game of the year and kicked a bunch of field goals the second game. And then after that, you saw Austin Jones really pop up there and become one of the top touchdown guys per game in America. It has a lot to do with the way we played up front, has a lot to do with him as a runner. Our fullbacks had an outstanding year. And then now, that's why it's so fascinating to me, so interesting. And questions that will never be answered is what would happen if we played another 6 games, because we ran the ball so well. And as we got to the last game of the year, we started throwing touchdown passes, right? So now we have that balance of being able to be proficient running and throwing down there. So that was exciting to see that us make that progression there, and I was very pleased there. On the defensive side, I think we still had some guys miss some time that we really wanted to have out there, in particular our linebacking core, inside and outside linebackers. Still had a lot of guys that missed, but we had guys step up and make a lot of plays. Our inexperience showed up at times, but I think our excitement for the future showed up as well. So I think there were times where we played really well in the red zone. And there were times that we played really well against the run, and there were spurts where we didn't. I think we've grown a lot and understand a lot about the guys that we have. And as much as I want to say we should have closed games much better, even the games that we won, had a chance to win a couple games by 2 and 3 scores, and we didn't. Won it by 1. But defensively, with games on the line, we finished games much better than we did a year ago. I mean, a year ago, I can rattle off 3 games off the top of my head right now from 2019 that we had a chance to win, that we didn't get the stops that we needed. And this past year, we got those stops. With last play of the game against UCLA, obviously, finishing up against Cal with a block, just finishing up against Washington. So being able to finish those games this past year much better than the year before. So improvement in certain areas, and the things I think we can continue to get better on, we'll continue to work on those as well.
And if I may, I wanted to follow up specifically about defense. Based on various metrics for defensive performance, it's been a struggle at times, really, for the last couple of seasons to kind of maintain that consistency at a high level that I'm sure you guys want. You've touched on this a little bit just with your last answer, but how would you just describe the trajectory of the defense overall, and kind of the state of the defensive unit and how it fits into the context of the last couple of years?
So I'll answer your question without being offended by it. I think I understand what you're trying to say. What we've missed in the last 2 years, with Jordan Fox playing less than half the games, with Jacob Mangum-Farrar and Ricky Miezon basically missing the last 2 years, Loa Kafusi basically missing a good chunk of last year and missing all of this year. We believe those are 4 top flight guys that we haven't been able to play, that I think have affected our football team. At the same time, Curtis Robinson made a huge jump from last year to this year. Sorry, my light keeps going on and off, low motion sensor. We had more production this year from our defensive line than we had last year. Those guys played better. I think we've got a couple of budding stars up there right now. I think Thomas Booker has got a chance to really explode on the scene next year as a senior with a lot of plays under his belt. Dalen Wade Perry, we think, has a high ceiling as well. Both those guys made more plays this year than they made last year. So the arrow's pointing up there. Looking coming into this year, believe me, we probably had the best corner tandem in America, with Paulson Adebo coming back as one of the top corners in America, then him not playing, and then having a little bit of a revolving door because of some health issues until Salim came in and started playing great. Up until that point, we were still maybe not playing at the level that we were capable of. So there's still a lot of those things that I think change our futures there. But when you watch Gabe Reed go from playing one position to a different position and still trying to figure out how to play inside linebacker but being productive, you see Levani Damuni come in essentially as a freshman, and multiple games lead us in tackles, still learning on the job to a certain degree. To see Stephen Herron come in essentially as a freshman and make some big plays, still learning on the job. So I like where we are. I like what we're doing. I think we're going to continue to look at different ways to utilize the personnel that we have and accentuate those positives. But when you really look at the plays that we made, you know, eight sacks in 6 games, could there have been more? Absolutely. But that's on a pace ahead of where we've been the last couple of years. The TFLs, the forced fumbles, right? All those things that weren't there necessarily last year, but really started to show up this year. I like where we are. I like where we're headed. We need to continue to push and improve in different ways. I think that we can. But I feel really good about our personnel going forward and what we're going to do with those guys.
Thank you, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Next question comes from Ashley Adamson. Ashley, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Good to see you. You mentioned Thomas Booker and would love your thoughts on kind of your reaction and what it meant to you when he told you he was coming back and what he brings to the team, not just from a football standpoint, but a leadership standpoint as well.
Yeah, anybody on this call that has interacted with Thomas Booker understands what I'm about to say, which is Thomas, he's got something that influences people. He's bright, he's smart, he's articulate, he's honest and open, and has just there's no ceiling to his leadership ability, not to mention his football ability. So to look at a guy like that had an opportunity to go out and maybe be, a mid-round guy, and I think he wants to be more than that, and there are things that he can improve on and have a chance to come back and really have a dominant year and be the high run draft pick that he wants to be, but at the same time, truly finish his college experience, finish his degree, and take that next step of leadership with Malik Antoine stepping off the defense, with Curtis Robinson stepping off the defense, and him now coming back as a captain, being an even bigger voice on our football team, is what I was really excited about. Yes, he's going to get better. Yes, he's going to have a great year. But I also think this guy is really going to step up and be an even bigger leader than he was the year before. So, yes, I was very excited. And I think him coming back is going to be beneficial to him, but also to this football team.
And just one last quick follow-up, if I can, non-football, and I hate to ask this with 2 minutes to go. If you'd be willing to share your thoughts on watching the inauguration this morning, and if and how you've sort of talked about where we are as a country with the guys in your locker room.
Yeah, I was able to watch some of it. We had some meetings this morning, so football still has to be part of what we do here. For me, honestly, there's been such a tumultuous existence, and for me, I'm looking forward to calm. I'm looking forward to calm, and I don't describe myself as a Democrat or as a Republican. I describe myself as an American, and I take every instance as it is. And so I don't hold anybody's politics against them. And at the same time, we've been through a lot as a nation. And as much as anything today, just in reading some things, excited to see some of the GOP leaders looking forward to unity. Looking forward to finding ways for us to work together as a nation to heal some of the wounds that have come up, really, especially in the last 6 months in particular, the racial issues as well as COVID issues, and trying to get back to Americans not fighting Americans is what I'm looking forward to. So hopefully this is just the beginning of that process of us really handling the big problems we have in our nation, not shying away from them, but handling them and being able to move forward.
Thank you.
Finish up with questions from 2 others, RJ first, and then we'll finish with Dave Kiefer. Go ahead, RJ.
Coach, I'm just curious about the recruiting process for you coming off a season where you were able to put some Stanford recognizable film back out there and kind of show that you guys can still be, who you say you are. And I'm just curious because I guess fans kind of live on a game by game. So when you lose, the program's in shambles. When you win, the program's great. And they assume that recruits feel that way too. And I'm just curious, has that even come up on the recruiting trail? Just the fact that you guys were able to put some of your stuff back out there?
And I appreciate the question too, that, and maybe not in so many words, but it was hard last year, and everybody understands why. We were never at full strength last year. But it's hard to talk about what you want to be without showing it. And this year, I think we're able to say this is who we want to be: the balanced offense that can run the football as well as throw it. And fascinating to me is that you look after 6 games, we're on pace to have a 1,000-yard rusher, a 3,000-yard passer, and a 1,000-yard receiver. That's an exciting thing to say on the offensive side. Special teams wise, I thought we had an outstanding year. We always talk about being aggressive and blocking kicks, and we were able to block kicks and win games. Right to the end of the season, we had the leading kickoff returner in the conference, who I think has a chance to be one of the best in the nation. I think we've got some outstanding punt returners that are young guys that we're cultivating. I think we've got outstanding kickoff and punt and field goal personnel. Yes, it's much easier to point to the film and say, this is who we are, than try to tell them without being able to show them. But yeah, that was big. In particular, the way we finished the year. 2 difficult losses, but 4 straight wins, all on the road, all through difficult circumstances. And our guys coming through in the clutch says a lot about the young men that we recruit, and it says a lot about the young men that we want to recruit. And absolutely much easier to point to the film and say, this is who we are, and now we can be even better.
Thank you, Coach.
Finish up with a question from Dave Kiefer. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, hi, Coach. I'm just curious about moving on at the quarterback position. What are you looking for the most from Jack West or Tanner McKee, or maybe somebody else that might have a chance to start?
Well, I always think about, and we've been through a couple of quarterback battles here, I always think about the great quote from the Hall of Famer Steve Young that said, the quarterback's job is to deal the cards. We need a guy that gets the ball out of his hands and into somebody else's hands. A guy that can handle all the pre-snap stuff. I feel very good about where we are schematically, offensively, with relation to who we have on the team. And I think that has shown the last month of the season. I think we're gonna have some really good carryover. There's still some things I think we want to be able to bring in as well. But it's just who can come in now and run that show and get the ball down the field as well as the intermediate passes, get us out of the good plays out of the bad plays into the good plays. That's just what it's going to be. And then being able to avoid the negative plays, whether throwing the ball away or scrambling for positive yards, is one of those things I think was really underestimated with Davis Mills. His ability to escape and get positive yards with his legs was big, and we need that from our starting quarterback. So I'm excited for the competition. It'll most likely go through training camp. It's not going to be decided in spring, but I think we're going to see a good basis. And it's not just going to be, okay, who's last man standing. There's a standard that we need these guys to come up and play with. We got a lot of upperclassmen that are counting on this year to have a great year, individually and collectively, and the quarterback's a big part of that. So whoever takes that job has got to take the reins with both hands and not just play a part, but lead us.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate the time. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We'll send out the audio and video here shortly.
All right. Thanks, everyone.